Celtics basketball is back, baby. Boston beat a short-handed Memphis Grizzlies team, and that change in play, that change in style, it wasn't as prominent as what most of us was expecting. Some different rotations than what we thought. A few players in the Celtics jerseys didn't play. They were in street clothes, including Neemias Keita. I'm here to tell you all about it with my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Billy Calabrese. What's poppin', Billy?
What's going on? Preseason is here, even if it kind of felt like summer league, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I said to you before we started recording, the easiest knock on this game is, oh, well, Memphis sat most of their starters, right? No John, no Jaren, no Zach Edey, no KCP. A bunch of dudes were in street clothes for Memphis, but you can only be what's in front of you. You can take a knock on this team all you want for the players that they had to go up against, but what were they meant to do? They can't go and drag the starters onto the floor. They still went out there and executed quite well. I think there was some encouraging signs. I also was shocked by a few things which we can go through. But I think first and foremost, and this is kind of where I started my newsletter as well today. If you're not subscribed, heather, this is CelticsChronicle.com, is having Xavier Tillman at the 5. And part of that is because Nimi wasn't in the rotation. I think if Nimi's healthy, Nimi takes that spot. We can debate whether Tillman and Garza are going to be in a spot battle there as well. But I was really kind of impressed and concerned with what we saw there, right? The lack of size from Tillman means that you're susceptible on the glass. It means that you're not going to have any rim deterrence there once you're eventually penetrated on the perimeter. Teams are going to get downhill at you, and they're going to be able to finish quite consistently just because you don't have a shot blocker or even someone like a shot alterer that's in the paint making life tough. The bonus side is you're super switchable 1 through 5. You can really play some high pressure defense up on the perimeter. So pick and roll advantages are going to be taken away quickly. There is a trade-off, but I just think that even against this weakened Grizzlies team, there were stretches where that lack of size before Garza would check into the game were really prevalent, and it was a concern.
Yeah, and that's probably the best Tillman has looked since the NBA Finals a couple years ago. He did have a little more bounce in his step. He looked lighter. He was like catching oops, which is something I never thought I would see from him. But
That was a
man,
fire oop as well.
it was a great pass, it was a great play. Like I got up out of my seat. That was actually really dope because it was unexpected. But I mean, they got bullied by like basically G League big men on the other end. We got out rebounded pretty bad. Like, I mean, it at the end of the game, it's only 4 or 5, but when you're watching the game, it's like every board they got in. It showed with us because we only had 17 fast break points. So this new let's push the pace, let's move faster, this high speed offense, all that stuff. It doesn't happen if you don't rebound. And that's this Grizzlies team can do that to us. What's a real NBA team going to do?
I've said this a bunch. The team that controls the glass controls the tempo. There's a difference between playing with pace and playing with tempo. Pace for me is decision making. And I felt like the Celtics were making pacey decisions. The ball was zipping around. It was very much that 0.5 offense that everybody talks about. Pass, dribble, or shoot, make that decision in a split second. Those things were at a higher pace, and they were getting into their actions earlier when they had the ball. The problem was most of the time when they were doing so, it was because they were inbounding, not getting out in transition. I do think that what they gave up in rebounding, they got back in steals, though. They were quite good at creating open floor turnovers and getting out on the run. I mean, if you look at this, Derek White had 2 steals. Hugo Gonzalez, Derek White had, 1 steal. I was looking at blocks for a second. Baylor Scheuerman had 2. Josh Minott had 3. Hugo Gonzalez had 1. They were Sam Hauser, Chris Boucher, Tillman all had a steal to their name too. They were very active in ball denial and passing lanes, and that allowed them to kind of up those transition points. And I'd hazard a guess that nearly all of their transition points came off turnovers, and they were good at forcing them. And that's something that the Celtics haven't been elite at in recent years because they haven't had to be, right? They haven't been a team that generates a high level of turnovers because they would rather funnel you in and take the glass or defend the shot because they had the rim protectors to do so. It's not that way anymore. So there are going to be those concerns about rebounding. Now, once Neemias Quaiters, and I've spoke ad nauseum about my concerns with Neemi, but once he's in the lineup or he's in the rotation, whether it be a starter or whether it become off the bench or whatever it is, that additional size, and the one thing he's actually quite decent at is boarding up and being able to control the glass a little bit. That's going to help a bunch. But I do think that because of that and because of the way Garza plays, the switchable defense we saw from that starting five isn't going to be the primary defensive system that we see all year round, because it's going to be more drop. If you've got Garza and Nemi, and those are your main two sizable bigs, neither of them are really perimeter guys. You saw what happened. Garza tried to hedge on a couple of pick and roll options. He showed on one, he hedged on another, and then I think he went to hedge on a third, and he got slip screen. People were slip cutting him on every one of those, and he just couldn't rotate. So then people were having to help off. It was creating this kind of confusion. I think the Grizzlies got I think it was 6 or 7 points, 2 twos and 1 3, or just 3 straight twos, off of people slipping out of Garza showing or hedging on the perimeter. You don't want him doing that. You don't want Nemi doing that. Play up to touch on the screen. So you can be out, and up to touch just means you can physically touch the screener. Play up to touch or play at the level, but then drop to contain. Don't shoot out to try and pressure, because then you're going to get destroyed. And I think you can only do that with Tillman.
And it's so funny because, like Joe said before the game, don't read anything about this game with the lineups or how we play, all that stuff. Like, this is basically not a precedent for anything. And I have more questions now than I did before this game, which is kind of crazy, because a lot of our offense was generated because Garza can pass and X can pass. So when we would throw the ball down in low into the post, they would kick it out for threes. Now we know Nemi isn't going to do that. He doesn't have the passing ability. So, like, what is this? Is this inside out thing going to be here to stay? Is it not going to be an option when Nemi's in? I really don't understand our offense at this point.
I mean, one thing I was quite interested with was they ran quite a few weave actions starting in the corner. So anyone that's listening, a weave action is just a dribble handoff that flows into another dribble handoff. So what they were doing a bunch was whoever had the ball in the corner, whoever had the ball would run a DHO for the guy in the corner to take the handoff and come onto the perimeter, and then flow into another handoff with a big man like X. And then X would either then redirect the rock, or you'd have a weave action where the ball handler goes into a DHO with the guy in the corner that then flows into a DHO with someone like Jalen Brown, who then turns around and comes off the screen to create space. That is a way that you can kind of work with Nemi not being a passer, in terms of you have him screening on the second, like straight after the second weave action, and then roll into the rim hard, because defenders are already like stuck in this chase cat and mouse game, because they've had to fight through one dribble handoff, chase a guy over into a second dribble handoff, make that decision on who they're going with, and then bam, you're getting run straight into a screen, and now the separation. Nemi can be that guy, and then he can just roll off of that lob threat. Maybe he starts to develop a short roll game, being able to pass out of there. That's an option where you can use him on the perimeter in a very similar way to what you did with Cornet, just without the movement that Cornet brings. Now, talking of movement, Luka Garza was incredibly impressive in terms of his fluidity of movement, his foot speed, his range of motion on those movements, and his screening ability and screening diversity. I think is also important. He was flipping angles. He was setting screens at the back, on the hips, really getting into his guy. That is going to be a key, because if he can do that consistently, it's going to be really hard to keep him out of that rotation.
And he's the closest thing to a rebounder on this team. I mean, he actually did a decent job on the boards, had himself a nice little double-double. The offense isn't pretty, but it's enough. Like, it reminds me of early Cornet when, like, he really couldn't. I mean, if the ball hit him in the hands, it was a miracle that he caught it. So this is Garza's right on like that kind of edge where he's going to still have to develop. But what he does is something Cornet did very well, is set screens. He is great at setting screens.
He's fantastic. His movement is really, again, his fluidity of movement is great. And I said this in yesterday's episode with Jason Timpf. I think that one thing you notice with Garza quite quickly is that his footwork is so smooth. He never feels like he's a 7-foot guy. Like, he moves like a forward. He moves quite like gracefully for his size. And that helps him, especially like as we saw in this game, when he's attacking closeouts, he's got no problem putting the ball on the floor because he's able to navigate the court. He's able to move around quite easily. I do have concerns. I'd like to see him shoot some of those threes, because I think he's naturally a better 3-point shooter than what Cornet is. I think he's naturally a better 3-point shooter than what Tillman is. And obviously, there's no question about him being better from the perimeter than Nemi. Just because Nemi's like, that's not really, he's working on it, but that's not really his game. Garza could be that pick and pop guy, but I like the versatility we saw. We saw him make some reads out of the short roll. We saw him attack closeouts and get downhill. We saw his D-cell step. A big man, a 7-foot dude with a D-cell step coming off the dribble is wild. So I think that's going to be important as well. Just his way to control his personal pace and dictate where he wants to be on the floor. He needs to be more forceful. He needs to be more decisive. But it's game 1 of preseason. Like, there's only so much you can read into it. But I'm the same as you. I've came away from this game with a lot more questions about the center rotation and the way that the system's going to incorporate those guys than what I came into it with. And I came in with a bunch.
Yeah, I didn't expect this to solve all of our questions, but I expected to at least have an idea, and I'm more baffled than ever. I am kind of interested in this idea that like whoever gets the rebound, like just pushes the pace himself and brings the ball up. We saw Garza do that. We saw X even do that. That ain't going to work when Nemi's out there. So I always was taught, you're supposed to push the ball up the court. It's faster to pass it than dribble it up. So I'm hoping if
ball moves faster than man.
Yeah, exactly. That's the so concept. I get the idea. Like they're acting like they're playing faster, but really it's not as efficient. So I don't know what this like jogging in place kind of thing is. It kind of seems like smoke and mirrors to me. This seems like the same Celtics as last year, where hey, if they make 15 to 23s, they're probably going to win the game. And guess what? They made 15 tonight. Their opponent made 7. Guess what? They won.
I think that it's hard to implement a change of play style in the small amount of time they've had. Right. I'd assume that a lot of their work with the messaging that came out of training camp is fitness related. You need the motor and the gas tank to be able to compete in the way that they're talking about competing. So it's going to be a while until we see them play at that tempo. And I think that it's hard to understand like how fast they're actually talking about playing. Now, does that, for me, it just means that there's going to be less set plays and everything's going to be more fluid. It's going to be more movement overall. If that's the case, then fine. I don't need you sprinting the floor on every possession if that's not what's going to be beneficial to success. But if you're going to be moving about the ball more, if you're going to be like, your gas tank is being drained because everybody's screening, cutting, rotating, nobody's ever really just standing around waiting for the ball to find them, then that's optimal to me. And I'm okay with that. And if that's the form of pace that they're going to play with, I am completely on board. The problem is, Mazzulla has spoken before about his issues with cutting and the way it messes up spacing. I actually think that there's a world like there was a really good play off Sam Hauser. I think it was in the 3rd quarter where he came off he set a ghost screen, come off the ghost screen into a flare screen. It's called a chest action. But instead of popping to get the ball, he then looped. So he cut directly from the perimeter, come off the flare screen and then cut towards the basket and then round to the far side corner. Now, his scoring gravity, shooting gravity means that defenders were following him. And what it did was you had to play trail Hauser so that Jalen Brown then had a lane to get downhill. So it might have been the 2nd quarter. But what I'm getting at is that one cut created a driving lane for Jalen Brown and it created confusion on the defense. Now, that's a pace of play thing. If a guy's cutting and dragging guys and you're instantly filling that gap and attacking that space that cut created, that's pace of play. And I'm completely fine with that. Now, it's going to be hard to do that consistently because you just don't have enough shooting gravity across the roster. It means that there's going to be more pressure on guys like Hauser, Pritchard, Derek White, Jalen Brown for when they are off the ball to manipulate defenses with movement. But I also think that given the length on this team and the amount of guys that can really make an issue when they're getting downhill and exploding around the room, I actually think it's beneficial and it could lead to some really nice looking basketball.
Yeah, and there's some guys that would really benefit from that are super athletic. Off the top of my head, Hugo and Minott is like, those two are freaks. Like Hugo's dunk, Hugo's block, and then just Minott is just active on every play. I wish he could shoot, but he is just everywhere. So, and he's always making an impact. So those two guys can really benefit from a change in the style. And they're not the greatest 3-point shooters, so it would help them a lot.
Yeah, I think Hugo's got the upside to be able to knock him down. I don't know why I'm going to call him Hugo. It's spelled Hugo. I get it. It's pronounced Hugo. But I think he's got the potential to become at least a reliable 35-36% three-point shooter down the road. His value at the moment does come in his physicality, his defense, his ability to play the lanes, just his incredible. Like, did you hear him on the broadcast talking about his hand size?
Yeah, that's he's got like the Scottie Pippen or Kawhi Leonard kind of claws,
yeah,
huh?
just like, I'm gonna squash this ball like an orange type of hand. Like, there's a lot that he brings to the floor, but getting him downhill is gonna help. Same with Minott. Even Jordan Walsh, I'm more confident with Walsh getting down and attacking the rim than I am with him shooting catch and shoot threes.
Yeah, it was a bummer he got hurt because I thought the other young guys kind of separated themselves from him because he wasn't playing. But I thought he could have really fit in with this group.
Yeah, and I think that given the opportunity, I think he's going to be okay. I'm not a huge fan. I think that I'm already sold. I mean, I was sold on Josh Minott from when they picked him up, but I already think Josh Minott could jump ahead of him in the rotation. I think Hugo can jump ahead of him in the rotation. It's going to be hard for him, but he does, again, if you're playing a game where there's a lot more movement and the pace that everybody's talking about is based on movement and people can get downhill, then great. I think he fits quite well as a slashing guy that can shoot the occasional three and can give you high-level defense with that length so you can have the gap defense you need when you've got a defender like Nemi or Garza behind you. That works. And that was one of the takeaways I had during this game, talking to gap defense, is the Celtics did a really good job of pressuring the dribble. Once guys penetrated the perimeter, they really pressured the ball handler. They really pressured his dribble hand. And a lot of the times you saw that the ball handler just ended up passing the ball. He either passed or he went into like a forced shot because they were making them uncomfortable. And when you've got limited rim protection behind you or questionable defenders behind you, pressuring that ball early makes a bunch of sense.
Yeah, I thought that was the best thing we did was pressure the ball because once the ball got in the paint, it was basically a bucket for the other team. Our rim protection was god awful. I felt like every time they got the ball around the basket, they scored.
It was tough. It was really tough. There was a few possessions where you'd see like Jalen Brown in like the weak side low man role, and you're like, that's never going to work. Like, not because Brown's not capable, but because he's got so much other stuff to focus on, and it's not like he's known for his off-ball defense anyway. It's going to be a little bit tricky. Now, again, these rotations were weird. I do think Chris Boucher looked decent. I don't think he looked fantastic, but he looked decent. He's definitely, in my opinion, going to be knocking on the door for a starting spot. One thing I did have, and we spoke about this before we came in, was the number of perimeter shots taken. Now, I came into this season expecting there to be a change in play style just because, as we just spoke about, there's a lot more explosivity in this roster, a lot more athleticism on the wings, and there's limited three-point shooting ability, especially with Peyton Pritchard out of the rotation. Like, really, you've got Hauser and White.
Yeah, like...
So, but yet you still take more than 50% of your shots come from deep. I was surprised by that because I did expect a bigger shift. And maybe that's coming. And maybe, again, this is still a working problem. It's game one. I don't want to overreact. But the fact that there was still so many perimeter-based shots tells me that maybe the changes we were expecting will be there, but they won't be as pronounced as what we thought they would be.
Well, I mean, if they're not going to drive on this team that had no bigs, that were like basically a donut, no center, when are they going to drive? They're going to drive when Embiid's out there or Giannis is out there. Like, if they're not going to do it against this team, why would they do it against any other?
I mean, that's a really fair question. I don't know the answer. Can't give you one. But I do think that I understand the importance of continuity in system, because once this team's back to a contending level, once Tatum's back, and if they make some changes either this year or during next summer, they're going to go back to this system. So I do understand the continuity of keeping with what you're going to lean on for the years to come. But I also think that, and this is a point Jason Timpf made yesterday, this is a great opportunity to try new stuff, see what works, and then carry some new stuff over for when the roster's competitive again. And I just think that if you're just going to do the same stuff that you did in seasons prior, and I'm not saying it's all the same, there's some key differences, but in terms of just the volume of shots here is what we're talking about, the volume of threes. If you're just going to keep doing more of the same, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to find new areas that work and find new opportunities to get guys involved. and help guys thrive. This whole year is meant to be about developing some of the younger talent. And if you're asking them to just be perimeter-based team, again, I'm really questioning whether they're going to develop the way you need them to.
Yeah, I just don't think you could win that many games if you're shooting 28% from three and you shot 53 of them. And I thought we shot the three fairly well for the most part of this game, but the numbers are the numbers. Like when you shoot under 30% from three at that high of volume, I mean, you're not going to beat even decent teams. You might beat this G League Grizzlies, but you're not going to beat, the whoever ends up being the 5, 6, 7 seed in the East. Like you're not going to beat an average team playing like that.
And I mean, look, if Baylor Showman finds a way to become a standard 37, 38% guy from deep, which feels like it's a long way away right now, and then you get a couple of threes a game from Garza, and Minott figures his shot out, and a couple of other dudes step up, then yeah, by all means, keep shooting those deep balls, because obviously now you've got enough balance in terms of guys that can be an average or above average perimeter shooter that it makes sense to do so, and your spacing can stay the same. But if they don't, then the adjustment has to be moving without the ball and getting downhill. And I think there's a balance between those two things. I think there's a world where you can go too far either way, right? And I think a lot of Celtics fans felt like the last couple of years Boston went too far towards the free ball, and I won't jump on that and say that's true, because that process led to a championship, and that process probably would have led to at least an NBA Finals run if Jason Tatum doesn't go down. So to then say that it didn't work, or it was stupid or foolish or just not the right, it's kind of disingenuous. So I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is that there's something to be said about balance, right? About having a balanced offense that can be unpredictable. And with this team right now, unpredictability is probably their best weapon.
I do wonder if they're playing the math game and they just have a number in their mind of how many threes they need to hit to win every game. And they don't care how many they take. It's just how many they make. And it's like a very Moneyball approach. But
yeah, but it's just basketball meant to be entertainment first and foremost, man. And I think people miss this, and they're like, "Oh well, it's about the wins. Do you not? Is winning not fun?" Well, yeah, I guess, but I mean, I know it is, but I'd rather see the development, dude.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm just trying to figure it out in my head, because that's what it kind of feels like. Where we're almost going back to the early 2000s, where efficiency doesn't matter. You could lead the league in scoring, scoring 30 on 30 shots a game. It's just about how many you make, not how many you take. And I really don't like that kind of basketball. I like a little more efficiency in my game. I think the early 90s or the early 2000s, I should say, are a disaster for that. But now we're just doing the same thing, but further out from behind the three ball. So the percentages are even lower.
I think that, again, it's one game, it's preseason. You're up against a weakened opponent. Maybe they were thinking, why bother driving the ball when we know we can get our shots off in deep? Maybe they were working on one specific aspect, which would probably be that drive and kick aspect that we saw. They did a good job there overall as a unit. I'm with you. I think that if the free is the best quality shot available on each possession, then you take it. If it's not, then you don't. And it should be that simple. And I hope that that's the development we see from this team. But right now, coming off this game, one, I'm really happy it started with a win. Two, I'm really happy Celtics basketball's back. And number three, now I'm kind of waiting for game two against Toronto, right? It's Toronto.
Yeah. And that should actually hopefully be like a real NBA matchup, not what we saw today.
And more than that, we actually might learn some stuff about the way this team looks. I'm taking this game. I don't know if you guys use this phrase over in the States, but it's called, I'm taking this game with a pinch of salt. I'm just throwing it away, right? It is what it is. We learned a few lessons, but we didn't learn. But like the lessons I learned was how this team looks with certain guys on the floor. And that's fine. That's all you need for game one. Move into game two, and maybe we can start to see some of the system changes that Mazzulla's making. Maybe they run some more plays. They barely ran anything of note in game one. It was a lot of freelance offense, which is fine. That's a good thing more than a bad thing. But if you're going to play a conceptual-based offense, then you need to lean into the concepts of that offense a little bit more frequently, especially with this team. So, look, it was a win. I'm happy with the win. I do think that the big man rotation is still a question. I have some questions about the shot diet of this roster right now. I'm still not too pleased with that. But that might just be an old man shouting at clouds.
Yeah, and I was a proponent of not playing a smaller backcourt with 2 ball handlers. After watching it today, if we are going to play fast, it might have to be White and Pritchard in the backcourt. Again,
Yeah.
it's just one game, but it's just not having that other ball handler. I feel like missed so many other opportunities we could have had, even though we were trying to play fast. But the proof's in the pudding. Only 17 fast break points. You need somebody else out there that could dribble.
That's the last point, actually, I want to hit on. I was surprised by the way Jalen Brown was used in this game. So I expected Jalen Brown to be on ball a little bit more than what he was. I expected him to be looking to create a little bit more than what he was. And he did that. He was on ball a bit more. He had more touches than what he probably would have last season at this point, the first game of the preseason. And he did well. Drew fouls, got to the rim, countered the defense in mid-range. I genuinely thought we'd see him try and showcase some passing range. Now, I get that he only played 20 minutes, but I do feel like there's a world there where maybe White does become the number one playmaker on this team, and where we were expecting Brown to be, that he just continues to lean into being that play finisher and that lead scorer and that secondary creator. And I think if that's the case, he's going to have an absolute monster season.
I hope that it isn't the rotation we saw today, though, for his minutes. I don't like him playing the whole first quarter because he got tired. He looked like winded with about 3 minutes left, and they just left him in there, and he just kind of worked through it, and it worked out. But I don't think he should be like on that Tatum diet where it's like a 12-6, 12-6 kind of breakdown.
Well, the point of that one was you start the game with those guys, you end it with those guys, and then you stagger them so one of them is always on the floor at all times. That doesn't make sense this year because who are you staggering? Like, there's no Tatum to stagger him with. So, but again, there's something to be said about continuity. And if you keep him in that rotation when Tatum is back, there's not really any friction in getting back to that. Do you know what I mean? And this is got to be one of the hardest things for Mazzulla because he needs to coach the team that he has, but he also needs to keep the door open that when Tatum comes back, there's not too much upheaval in the approach. Especially if they think Tatum's coming back this year. So if he keeps Brown on that Tatum diet of like, yo, you're going to play the beginning, then we're going to stagger you between the two, and then you're going to play at the end because when Tatum's back, everything just slots in perfectly, then I understand that completely because I understand that you're trying to make sure that there's as little friction as possible, even when Tatum comes back. Now, not reading the tea leaves too early, but if that is the case, then clearly they're planning on having him back at some point.
Yeah, it does kind of feel that way. It's just, I don't think that's the best thing for Jalen Brown because when he plays tired, he plays reckless. That's when the turnovers really start, when he takes bad shots. But like I said, he had a good game, very limited, obviously, but he got to the foul line more than I think we've seen him get to the foul line in God knows how long.
So
there's some positives there. Very aggressive. Like, he really felt comfortable being like, hey, I know I'm the guy right now.
And I think that again, if this is the role, if he plays a similar role to what we saw here, where there's ball handlers around him, he gets the ball to create for himself or be able to be like that secondary creator and kick out if the shot isn't there. And he can just be aggressive offensively and lean into his skill set of pressuring the rim, attacking the mid-range, and then hitting some catch and shoot jumpers. I think he's going to have an absolute monster season. He's going to be great as that secondary attack guys. Like Derek White initiates, Jalen Brown just cooks, Peyton Pritchard initiates, Simons initiates, Brown cooks. If Brown gets the ball and the defense rotates over, Brown will run a PNR and then just spray the ball out to whoever and get the assist that way. I think that would be one of the more efficient ways for Brown to run the offense this year. And I think that could be like incredibly good for him.
Yeah, I hope so. Like I said, it's only one game, and it's not even really a full game or a real game. I can't imagine what they thought when they saw that these players out there. Like, I mean, we're about as sick as hoop heads as can be. Like, let's play a game. Can we name more than 5 Grizzlies that played tonight?
No, probably not.
I mean, it was rough. Yeah, there's GG's pretty good. I like GG Jackson. I like what's his name that everybody loves, that everybody wants to trade for. He was awesome, but that was it. They had like 2 players that were NBA playable, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at who was out. Do you know what I mean? You did Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Jaron Jackson Jr., Ty Jerome, Jock Landale, John Moran. It's like, dude, you pretty much your entire starting five was benched. And then your bench unit moved into the starting lineup. And then, I mean, Santiago Downward played, but, you know, what can he do on his own? John Conchar played, but there just wasn't enough talent around him. With that being said, I think this was a great teaser. And I think that's how I'm going to treat it. This was a teaser. Yeah. Tease me, baby, till I lose control. Sorry. Right then, we're going to go. If you enjoyed this show, make sure you subscribe to the Celtics Chronicle YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button right now. Don't miss another episode. We love you. Goodbye.
Peace.